Welcome to Mindset Chatter. Today's guest, the fabulous Ella White from Roberts Wesleyan University Women's Soccer. Hello, Ella.
Hello.
What's going on?
Not much. Just been working, training, playing soccer. Same old, same old. How
The
about you?
uh, the off season,
Yeah, right.
right?
Such thing.
Yeah, right. Well, I think I prefer to call it the growth season.
Yeah,
It's when we get to work on things we don't have time to when we've got schoolwork and practice and some semblance of social life.
yeah, yeah. I feel like I oftentimes find myself growing the most like in these off periods because I'm working in these periods to kind of not stay steady, but stay consistent throughout like the fall season when I'm going into it. So like I definitely agree with that. I think this is growth season. And then the same thing over like winter breaks and stuff like that. I'm still in the gym, on the field, running.
Yeah, well. And it shows when I was still involved with the team, you were definitely a constant workaholic.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
So hey, so when I was thinking of people to have on this, your name came right into my head because um partially the workaholic thing I just mentioned, but to me, when I thought about you and how much I enjoy our conversations, one of the things I thought about is you seem to master the art of vulnerability. When I think about you kind of stepping into the spotlight, out of the spotlight, willingly or unwillingly, I think of you as being someone who's very authentic and not afraid to show who they are. So, um, let's talk about vulnerability and how we can lead ourselves and maybe others through that.
Yeah, I think vulnerability is really important. And vulnerability, I feel like a lot of people think about it as like a bad thing. And they think, oh, if I'm vulnerable, then I have to tell people when I'm upset, when I'm sad, when I'm mad. But it's not just that side of things. I feel like it's also important to be vulnerable even when you feel like you're at like a high. And I think that that happened to me in like the beginning of my college career. And I kind of was in the spotlight, like you said, and I wasn't vulnerable at that point. Like I fully had my guard up, whatever. And then I don't really know what did it, honestly, but suddenly I started realizing that I had a bit of an ego and it was important to be vulnerable with that. And I'm okay with admitting it now because it's the truth. It was the truth, and it's not the truth now, because it's something that I worked on. But it was important to be vulnerable and realize that first, and kind of admit it to myself, and then eventually others and stuff to in order to be able to work on it.
I think that's interesting. That made me think of you mentioned vulnerable and ego interplaying with each other, and I think when it comes to if we're kind of staying on topic of leading ourselves, let's say that we have a hard time maintaining an image of ourselves. Maybe we're too aligned with perfectionism, but I think we have a hard time aligning, admitting that we're so like it's hard to admit that maybe we have these fallacies, these downfalls, and having maintaining this superstar image of ourselves. So I think when I think of that, it's being authentic with ourselves. And how do you feel that authenticity actually strengthens our ability to um, lead ourselves?
I think that I think that being authentic helps you lead yourself in the sense that you have to be wholly yourself in order to lead yourself. Like if you even lie to yourself about where you think you're at mentally, physically, emotionally, wherever, then there's no way to lead yourself. There's no way to like take any steps in the next direction because you think you're kind of okay where you're at. You think you're kind of stagnant. You like I kind of said before, you have a guard up, maybe like have a mask on or something like that. But to be authentic is to, for lack of a better term, like show your true colors. And I think once you do that, you're able to work on yourself more and lead yourself more. Yeah. I think one of the things for me, I have a tough time focusing. I always have. I have ADHD. So one of the things for me as I'm leading myself is to be authentic with my focus. And sometimes I'm sitting at the computer and I'm like, okay, I have just read the same sentence 5 times. I'm going to take like a 5-10 minute break and get back to it. And like that's the importance of being authentic because I most college students, I feel like, or scholars or researchers or doctors would just power through it. But for me, I know that it's important to take a second and come back to it.
I think I think in order to have that authenticity with yourself, you have to find a way to be comfortable in your own skin. Because I think a lot of the things that hold us back from being that vulnerable is that we're not so much afraid of the opinion we have of ourselves, although I'm sure that negative self-talk comes in a little bit. But I think we're worried about the opinion other people are going to have of us. We think maybe they're looking at us and we have to maintain this super high unrealistic standard. And I would say it's almost like being vulnerable almost invokes shame because I think you're looking at me and oh man, I told her that. Now she probably thinks less of me or something. I mean, how do you grapple with that being comfortable with yourself and kind of keeping that shame at bay? As I mean, personally, I think keeping it to yourself, that secrecy, I think shame just thrives on that. It makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Um, I found that like throughout, I don't know, maybe the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, that being authentically myself has not only made me more comfortable with myself and like proud of who I am, but it also, I've noticed it invites others to do the same around me. And I've noticed that a lot of people, like, they like to come to me for advice or if they just need to get something off their chest. I feel like it happens quite often to me. And I don't know, I think I'm a pretty good listener. So I think that me presenting myself as somebody who does get sad and does get egotistical. And I can sometimes be rude and I can also sometimes be really kind. Um, as human, as authentic, I think that makes me seem more real and like a complex person. Like I'm deep. I have a lot of emotion and I like to show it. And I think that's important not only for me to be true to myself and know where I'm at, but also for others to know that they can do the same thing.
I love that because I think when we talk about leading others through vulnerability, um, that leading by example, I think you're exactly right. I think it empowers other people to be like, well, gee, if Ella cannot be worried about this, why should I? And obviously, it probably runs the gamut of some people are a lot more comfortable doing that, and some people are hesitant. Um, but yeah, I think that's huge. Have you seen like noticeable differences in people you work with, play with, whatever it is, of changes in their everyday kind of behavior, the way they deal with their imperfection, their from you being that way?
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot on soccer teams. Um, I feel like I oftentimes find myself like befriending the quiet one or somebody who's like goofy, but they don't really show it because I'm just like I'm just on the field being goofy, dancing, singing, you know me. I always have like my one-liners when somebody scores a goal, especially if it's a really good goal. And I think it invites other people to do the same thing. Like with that, that makes me think like if somebody scores a banger, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say, "We got a license for that rocket," or something like that. And I've found that other people start to do the same thing and hype each other up. And I think that's really important. I'm sure you remember the videos that we would watch with Coach Mac. Like a quiet gym is a losing gym. And that really stuck with me because I mean, I can't bring my full like 100% or 110% energy every single day. I'm going to give 100% of what I have, but that video made me just try to it reminded me to be loud and support my teammates because it feels good when I get that. And then the other one is I can't remember his exact name, maybe Steve Nash or something like that, who would high five his teammates all the time, give him pats in the back and stuff like that. And the study that found that teams who like support each other and like touch each other more are more successful. And I find that really interesting. So I try to bring that to some teams, like even my summer team we'll finish our warm up and I'll go around and I'll start high fiving everybody, and or not everybody because eventually I'll realize wait, people on other teams don't do that. But I give out high fives like crazy, and I didn't realize how much I do it until I like come home for summer. It happened last summer too, and it's really interesting to me. But it's awesome. Like it makes me feel great to support other people and to feel other people do it back to me. Because even last summer, some of my teammates would start giving me high fives too, and it was just like, oh, cool. She thinks I'm doing good.
Yeah, I
So
think that was Steve Nash. That's something like touch more, win more,
yeah,
which
something like that.
we definitely had in place on in soccer for the years I was there. Kind of reminds me of myself going through and just having you guys like hit me as hard as you could.
Yes.
Just same kind of thing, just to fire up the energy a little bit, and I guess get in touch with my goofy self and spread it around to you guys a little bit.
Yeah. And it did change the energy so much. I mean, when you couldn't make it as much the past couple of years, like we would say, "Oh, I miss Nosey. Oh, I miss Nosey," and even now, I miss Nosey. Like it's the truth, and that energy is so infectious. But sometimes it can be a little bit scary to bring it because sometimes like people don't react right away to that. Like it might take a few practices of me doing that to have somebody else maybe be comfortable enough to do it, or maybe they don't do it in a big scrimmage but they do it in a little drill, but that's still good. That's better than it was before. And so I think it's also important, like if you're doing a good thing and you know it's something good, you know it's positive, just keep doing it even if it doesn't have like an effect right away. Eventually it will. At least I think.
So you've definitely fully embraced your vulnerability, fully embraced your authenticity, and we've talked about kind of the positive energy some of that will bring. You talked earlier a little bit about, being an emotional player, an emotional person. So I think that sometimes your outbursts of this energy you have, especially if it's on a more negative side of yourself, like let's say you miss a shot or something doesn't go that way, with you kind of having your heart on your sleeve, I think sometimes your reactions, your emotional, the way you deal with those maybe are misunderstood by others. I mean, what's your thought about if you're going to be fully authentic in people kind of understanding what the negative side of that might look like?
I think that my authenticity with my negative emotions has changed as I've grown. So when I was younger, when I was 5, 6 years old, probably even older, probably up until like age 8, if I lost a game that was like really important to me or really close, like I would be very emotional after. Or if I made a mistake, I'd get so upset with myself, put so much pressure on myself. And I still do, but I've worked on my self-talk, like you mentioned before, and just like my mistake reaction so much that it's gotten better, but it's still not perfect. Like when I make a mistake, I'm not going to be like, "Oh, cool, awesome, a mistake." Like I'm going to understand it. I'm going to like acknowledge it, but I'm not going to dwell on it. And sometimes acknowledging the mistake comes with emotion, and I think it's totally fine to show it, but to an extent, like I'm not going to be swearing on the field or stomping or anything like that, but I mean, sometimes it gets emotional, and I think it's important to show it because soccer is an emotional game. And even beyond soccer, like in life, I think it's important to show emotion because it shows that you're human. Like if I see other people showing emotion, if I'm around somebody and I never see them upset, I'm gonna think, are they like a sociopath? Like are they never what's going on? And if they're like always happy, like that's just I don't know. I don't think that that's authentic. I think that everybody has bad days or bad moments and it's important to show those.
Yeah, I think you made me think there that it's like we we can't help but have emotions. It's a part of just being human, but it's the learning of how to kind of manage our way through those. Because I hear a lot of people say that, well, hey, either don't feel that way or just let that go, or kind of dismissive to um to what we're going through. But you made me think of, you said sociopath and like overly happy about something. It makes me think that, being vulnerable and being willing to show that, expose that side of you takes courage. And maybe it's just that people haven't found the courage or that comfort zone, the comfort in our own skin, we called it. Maybe it's more of fear. I'm still worried about someone else judging me for whatever, being goofy or for embracing my mistakes or whatever that is. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of the courageous aspect of vulnerability?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that there's totally an aspect of like maybe like discomfort and not being not having the courage to do so. Um, so perhaps I used the wrong word, but I probably did use the wrong word.
Oh,
But I think that it's almost like a practice. Um, and I did this. I practiced being more courageous. I like practice being more myself. And I think over time it's become easier and easier because I don't really fear like uh, embarrassment, I guess. Like if I go out and I fall on my face, okay, it happened. What there's nothing I can do about it now. Like sure people might laugh at me, but like that's okay. I mean, I didn't mean to do it and I'm up now. I got up, whatever. Like it's okay. And there's genuinely nothing you can do about it, so just move on. So I think it's stuff like that, but it's a practice and it's not easy at all. It's very difficult to do something. It's uncomfortable and it takes it takes guts, but I think it's a conscious thing that everybody can do, like little by little, and even if it's not with the whole entire world, at least with the people that you're close with, I think it's important to be authentic with.
well, and I think for sure with the people you're close with, but even being able to put yourself in an environment where you're going to go out and be authentic, and knowing that you can't control the outcome, you might fall on your face, like you said. Who knows what happened? Maybe you're successful, which you probably get looks for if you're successful, or you fall on your face. To me, that like not still stepping out into that void and not knowing what the result is, to me, has got to be like one of the biggest definitions of bravery. It takes some courage to do that, and maybe that's like one of the ultimate definitions of bravery is just doing it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think another thing that's kind of pushed me to lean into my vulnerability more is the loss of my best friend. She passed away in December of 2024, no, 2023. And it kind of just, she was my age, just about a month younger than me, actually. And it just gave me a reminder that nothing is promised and like our time. above ground with our working, moving, healthy bodies, if we're so blessed enough to have one, is limited, and we don't know how limited it's going to be. Like it's going to be limited. It's going to end at some point. So while we're here, while we're blessed to have a body and have the ability to experience the world, why don't we do it to the best of our ability? And I think to experience the world to the best of your ability, you have to be who you are. Because other than that, you're just kind of faking it.
Yeah, the best of our imperfect ability. I love that you said the best that we are, and I like that too, because you made me think of talking through that, and I'm sorry to hear about your friend. Um, you made me think of you're touching on and getting at being like the best first-rate version of ourselves instead of, trying to be someone else or trying to hide some things so we fit in more. And I've heard before, why would you want to be a second-rate version of someone else? So I think you're kind of getting to that, which we're all unique in some regard. So it's kind of just embrace that and go forward. It's the only people giving you funny looks are the ones who haven't found the courage to break out of that mindset yet.
Yeah. And I find that the people that give others who are vulnerable and openly courageous, the people that look at those people like they're crazy are the ones that haven't embraced their authenticity yet, and they're not comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so they can't understand when somebody is comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think it comes from maybe some envy, and I think it's a reminder that they need to grow a bit.
Yeah, I want to dig in a little bit to like your stress level, the difference in your anxiety and stress level from when you were like when you first came in as a freshman and were less vulnerable, and maybe trying to control the narrative, control your outcome a lot more, which we talked about, we can't do. Um, how liberating was it for you from kind of from a mindset perspective to be vulnerable? It might seem like counter, like, geez, if I'm more vulnerable, I'll be less stressed. But can you speak a little bit like that? Did you experience that?
I think I definitely did. And I think the big thing for me was it just kind of felt like almost like letting go and realizing that the way that other people perceive me is out of my hands. And as long as I'm like putting in all of my effort, as long as I'm being kind and loving everybody that I meet, then I should not worry about how other people see me because I'm doing my best. Like if I was rude and and I didn't work hard and I didn't get my work done, I didn't go to practice or I was late, then I would probably be a little concerned. But if I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing, then I don't really have I don't know. I don't really have any worry that other people are judging me for it.
What kind of feedback did you get from your teammates when they noticed kind of a shift in the way you were approaching um, things with this new embracing of your authenticity?
Um, I I think that I'm trying to remember like exact things that they've said, but and I didn't get feedback from everybody because I think it's also a a touchy thing for a teammate to be able to give that feedback because then that implies that they did think different of me when I was a freshman and then they think different of me now, which is good and I want that.
Right.
But I think it's a tough thing for somebody to kind of say. Um, my mentor at Roberts calls it a trusted truth teller, somebody who tells the truth no matter what, even if it might be a tough thing to say. Um, but Kara has said it, KJ as well, Lily, and other teammates too have just said that I've grown, become more mature, I guess. But I don't know. I'm trying to think if they've said anything exactly, but it's mostly also just like it seems like they trust me more and they are more open with me. So I don't know if it's always exactly been something that they've necessarily said, but I guess the way that they just embrace me as a friend besides just a teammate.
I think that's an interesting point. You talked about the trust a little bit, and I think that word probably applies as we think about vulnerability and leading ourselves. I think maybe we trust ourselves more um, when we're not keeping things under wraps, if you will. But I also think, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, that as a leader, whether it's a titled role or not, um, I think a lot of times we think a leader, we have to be like, there can't be any imperfection. We always have to know what's going on. We have to have all the answers. And I feel like if we show that we don't have all the answers a little bit, that people actually trust us more than if we say we do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that also applies a lot as a coach and as a personal trainer because sometimes an athlete, a player, or a client will ask me something or say something and I won't know the answer and maybe I'll try to give them guidance, but I'll say, I don't actually exactly know the answer to that, but I'm gonna research it a bit later today or tomorrow whenever I get the chance and I'll get back to you on that. So I think it gives me a chance to grow as a coach in that sense. I mean, you can do it as a player as well. And then it also tells the player and the client, whichever one it is, that you don't know everything, and that's okay. Because I think it's also important with any career or sport or whatever to constantly grow and constantly be in the process. And if you're a coach, that's what you're trying to coach players to do. So it's important to show the players or the clients that you're also getting better yourself. I think it's just good to, it's almost like being a role model, like modeling the behavior that you want them to do.
I 100% agree with that. One of my favorite quotes as a coach is your athlete can't follow a stop sign. And exactly what you said. If I want specifically the goalies for me, if I want my goalies to continue pushing their boundaries and getting better and constantly exploring, I have to do it. And I honestly feel like I've done a good job as a coach when I have to come home and study my butt off to try to learn some new stuff because they're pushing so hard that I've got to stay one step ahead. And I like to say that, I am not the keeper of all goalie knowledge. So, whatever the situation, whatever the question you ask, let's explore that. And it's almost maybe I'll have to go home and try to figure some stuff out, but I'd rather with feet on the ground right there, right then, say let's do it right now. Science experiment on, let's figure out your question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's also to build off of that, I think that's also important to do because then it shows that player that they can do that process themselves. So if they have that question and I'm not around or you're not around or a coach isn't around, then maybe they can work through things and try to answer it themselves.
I think the right to that again too is I think of when I bring up a session plan into a practice and it fails miserably, whether it's because I totally conceived it wrong or because on that certain day the execution isn't going proper. You, in my opinion, you have to be able as a coach say, you know what, this is crap today. How are we going to change it?
Yep.
How do you need to make it better? So I think back to your point too, it's empowering those people we work with to know that it's okay that you can throw that away and figure it out.
Yeah. And it's okay to be able to replace one thing with another or to take an extra rest if you really need it. And I think that's definitely really important because it shows that they have their own free will. So, and it's important to exercise that. And it's also it's also important and I always tell my clients to tell me if any of the exercises that I give them like hurt. And that's because like they have to speak up for themselves because if they don't, it's going to keep hurting them. So it's important to make sure that you take it and give them the best practice that they can get.
Well, we could go deep on that one. If with what does this is hurting me even, even mean. We can easily define that from a physical standpoint, but as coaches, we need to take a step back and be like, wow, am I hurting in ways that aren't seen based on how I'm navigating these situations?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think that that kind of reminds me of the emotional aspect of the game again and the emotional aspect of fitness in general and just life. Like it's important to take into account how people are feeling. Like I would sometimes and I still do. I sometimes show up to practice and I had a terrible day and I'm there ready to work and ready to play soccer, but maybe I'm in a bad mood. Maybe I'm a little bit extra hard on myself that day. And I think it's important to show it and I don't know. And sometimes I show up and I'm ready to just absolutely work and I'm so excited to be there and it's important to show that too.
Yeah, it's why I love talking to you. You keep making me think of other things here. But you made me think about there was a quote I read at some point, and you hear it a lot saying, like, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you try to do? But it, I think maybe the question is, what would you do? What's worth doing, even if you knew you might fail?
Yeah. And I mean, the simple answer to that is everything. Like why wouldn't I try to do everything if I couldn't fail, I would definitely try everything. Definitely. Because it makes me think of like working out, lifting. Like if you're squatting and you try the heaviest weight that you can do, I mean, if you do it, then great. If you fail, then you can keep working on it and go till failure until you can do so. So I think it's important to acknowledge that failure because it can happen, but that's what it makes me think of. Like if I approached a squat PR and I'm like, I couldn't fail this. I got this. I can't fail. Then I would probably be way more motivated to hit it than if I was really uncertain.
Yeah, I like that. So the vulnerability is in the acceptance of failure, knowing that I can learn lessons from that. And then the authenticity piece of that would just be kind of showing yourself to the world that, yeah, this is me and I'm going to go for it. And if I don't, who cares? I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I feel like that the question when you said the quote, I mean, it does empower me and inspire me to do things if I feel like I couldn't fail. But then again, I feel like I've done a lot of work to reframe my mindset that failure isn't a bad thing, and it's almost good to fail. Like if you're practicing soccer and you're doing technical and you're just doing rep after rep after rep and you're really pushing your speed, you might lose the ball, but that means you're working hard. And so I think it's important to take that and say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to work at the speed and just try to keep it this time. And so I think I don't know, I think failure is a good thing. I think it's just as good as success, if not better.
I'd say better because if you solely focused on success and were always successful and never had failure, I think you're going to hit your max growth at some point because you're not pushing that boundary. To me, if you're like always, man, if I'm getting 100% every time, I'm probably not challenging myself enough. But
Yeah.
I think the flip side is, and you said it earlier, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I mean, can you live on the edge of that comfort zone enough that you're pushing hard enough that you're going to experience that growth through learning the lessons of failure?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I've learned the most with failure. And I mean, I've learned with success as well, for sure. But I don't know. I think it's important to embrace it. And I think it's important to kind of tack it up as something that's like, it's totally okay if it happens. And it might. And it probably will. It like everyone's going to fail at some point. But I think it's important to use it as motivation.
Well, so here's the thing with failure for me. It it's fine from a personal standpoint to kind of accept it and I'm good with it, I'm good for it. But then we step out into the public eye And it becomes a little bit of a different story, right? Because you've got people maybe judging you, or trying to, if you know, maybe make themselves feel better. You feel worse. Maybe just being afraid of that they couldn't try it themselves. But we let people have power kind of over the way we think and behave based on how we think they're perceiving us. Um, by embracing by embracing that failure, by being vulnerable to it, how do you feel you gain your power back, just in general? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think that a lot of the time, I think when people are scared to be vulnerable and be themselves, it's because they're afraid of what other people think of them. And I think it's because they sometimes look at other people and they might think negatively of those other people. So something that I tried to do was and I did a few years ago. It was like my New Year's resolution to just be more positive. Like think when I see something, try to think of a positive thought first. And if I think something negative, try to think the opposite of that or think of something that corrects it. So, for example, like in traffic, if somebody cuts me off, then I'd say, okay, maybe their wife is sick in the passenger seat or their kid is sick in the back seat and they need to get to the hospital. I will let them go. They're probably in a bigger rush than me. And to be honest, I'm safe. They didn't hit me. Doesn't affect me anyways. So, and then also another example might be if I see like somebody walking down the street and I see like an accessory on them that I really like, I'll say something, I'll compliment them if I pass by them, of course, close enough. And I think that positivity that I practiced helped convince me that when other people see me, they're either neutral or thinking positive things. And I think it takes that kind of shift in your own mindset towards other people to remind yourself that if you can see all this good in other people, then of course other people can see all the good in you because there is so much good in you. And I think that also takes the authenticity of understanding yourself, but that was already spoken about.
I think it's an interesting experiment to do, to like be as nice and as kind and as noticing of like an accessory, like you said, of people and
Mhm.
things. How many percent of people that you say things to are generally genuinely um like shocked that somebody actually one paid enough attention and then actually took the time and said, geez, your hair looks great today or something. They're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And uh, probably 75% of the time, I'd say people are surprised when I give them a compliment because I try to do it a lot with like people I don't even know because I don't know. I think it gives them a good reminder that like what they're doing is good. Like they're doing good things and they're a good person and other people are noticing it. And hopefully stuff like that will encourage other people to do the same thing. Like I saw a woman the other day in a coffee shop with she had her makeup done and had like her eyelashes or her eyelids like all done. I don't know what the word is. Um and eyeshadow. She had eyeshadow. That's what it was called. And I said something, and I swear, she smiled for like 5 minutes, and it was so cute. Like, it just seemed maybe that's what she needed. And you might not know if that's something that somebody needs until you do it.
Well, let's talk about it. Maybe you've had the experience of it. Let's talk about the boost to your knowing it was worth being vulnerable and worth being authentic. Because let's say you're sitting there and you did yourself all up and whatever, and you're being authentically you. When somebody notices that and compliments you on that, I mean, how's that just add to you wanting to continue that?
It because it if somebody comes up to me and they say something about me, whether it's about my appearance or my personality, if it's like somebody I know and they say something about my personality and my character and stuff, it just reminds me that what I'm doing is a good thing and it encourages me to keep doing that thing. Like the other day I was at the gym and I was talking to this guy and I can't even remember what I did. I did something for him. I think I like put his dumbbells away or something. And he said, he was like, I hope that you keep doing things like that because not a lot of people do things like that. And if you keep doing it, it'll encourage others to do so as well. And it was encouraging for him to say that because sometimes it gets a little bit like tiring and exhausting to keep doing good things and to keep being a good person. But it's it's nice to have somebody notice and to have them say so. So I think it's really important to say something like that because that was weeks ago and I still remember it.
Well, that's interesting. That's a good segue into my next kind of area. And you touched on it before a little bit about with the positivity and stuff. I have a love-hate relationship with positive mindset. Um, because sometimes the only thing we can be positive of is things are really horrible right now. So I tend to default more to a productive mindset. So like kind of you just said, right? It's tough to continually operate in that mode. Um, what times do you find yourself relying on falling back into just work my process, as opposed to being, hey, things are good, things are great. Um, can you talk a little bit about that?
Really often, to answer your question, sometimes like I don't have the motivation to do stuff, like to do the things that I need to do. And when that happens, it just comes down to discipline. And in the beginning of a journey of something new, it's hard to stay disciplined because I talked about this earlier, but you might not see results right away, and it might take consistency. But in in the past with me, all of the things that I've been consistent with, and I could list them out, have been beneficial for me. Like the all the good things that I've been consistent with have been beneficial for me. Like exercising, making my bed in the morning, eating good food and stretching and talking to family members and people older than me and trying to give advice to people younger than me and stuff like that. Like it's all paid off. So I often find myself not wanting to do the day in and day out stuff, but I know that it's going to propel me further in life and it's going to also help the people around me too.
Well, let's even talk more about the propelling yourself through, because I feel like a lot of times we think that the way we feel dictates our behavior, but I'm more inclined to think like to your point of discipline, our behavior dictates our feelings. And I think a good example is waking up at 4 in the morning and going to the gym to work out, right? How many times do you feel like that? Probably not often, and the result could be you don't do it. There's no behavior. But if you're like, you don't hit that snooze, you get up, you go work out, how do you feel after that? Talk about that relationship between feelings and behaviors and how that's kind of impacted you.
Well, I think that in terms of behaviors, it's been really important for me to establish good ones and establish ones that I know I can stick with. So I'm not for me, I know that at this point in my life and during the summer, I can't go to the gym at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and wake up at that time and be good. Like I can't, I know that I can't do that. So a behavior that I would set is maybe instead of 4 a.m., maybe like 7, and that's something that I can stay consistent with. So I think an important thing about behavior is making sure that you're not setting your goals way, way, way too high right away and expecting too much of yourself because behavior can be simple things. Like I mentioned before, like making your bed or stretching. Like it doesn't necessarily have to take copious amounts of effort, but it can go a long way. And then you said behavior, and then what was the other thing?
Feelings like,
Feeling.
do your feelings drive what you do, or does your behavior drive your feelings?
I think that my behavior drives what I do, but I also make an effort to acknowledge my feelings throughout. So if I if I have a workout planned for a day and I'm feeling really just not good mentally or emotionally or whatever, I think it's important to acknowledge that and like you said, be able to say, okay, I'm going to scrap it. Or maybe instead of working out, I'm just going to do like a light stretch, or maybe I'll read or something like that. Something that's still productive, but able to be switched out. So I think it's important to listen to your feelings in that way because I think it could cause some burnout if you just keep pushing yourself way too hard.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think there has to be an interplay there. Um, and probably like with most things, just understand how your relationship with those are. I love what you said about not getting up at 4 a.m. to work out and maybe doing it at 7 a.m. I think the important thing there is when you realize you want to do something, and even though all the experts are saying, oh, that's the first thing you should do in the morning, get up early and do that or whatever. If you're not a morning person and that doesn't work for you, set a consistent time, like you said, that does work for you.
Yeah, like I feel like an average time to wake up is probably, I mean, it depends on when you need to get to work, but maybe 7 or 8. But if you need to get up way, way, way earlier, I think it's probably a little bit easier to do it maybe in half an hour or hour increments and stuff like that, and just setting little mini goals to get to your large, big goal. Like it's okay to have that goal and it's good to have big goals, but I don't think you couldn't get to a goal like that right away. At least it probably wouldn't work out. I'd probably be losing a lot of sleep if I tried to do that. So I'd have to do it little by little. So I think it's important to set little goals.
I'm a 4 a.m.er.
I couldn't. 4 a.m. or in how many cups of coffee?
I think I'm down to under 20.
Okay.
See, I'm
Well,
improving. Things are going.
you
I have to if I don't get up at 4 a.m. and get my like routine done before my day starts, I just can't focus. I'm distracted, like I'm forgetting to do something or I know I haven't done something. So I need to be done by the time the world wakes up.
so let me ask you this. How many hours of sleep do you get?
Mm, I don't know, between 5 and 6 maybe.
That's not good, Nosy.
The older you get, I'm getting closer to being under the surface. So
Oh
it's you gotta put
gosh.
the time in. All right,
Guess
so let's I've got one more for you. I want to respect your time. So back to the vulnerability, we kind of drifted a little bit. It happens all the time here. Um, there's an interesting, do you call it a paradox? It's like we want other people to be vulnerable, but we're very scared to be vulnerable ourselves. So what is that? Is that a paradox, a dichotomy? It's like we want other people to do it, but we don't want us to do it. When we think about that, I mean, how, and we talked about at the beginning, kind of leading through being vulnerable and authenticity. How do we, how do we encourage other people to do that? Not necessarily through our actions, because we talked about that. How do we accomplish both of those? Us being vulnerable and encouraging other people to do the same.
I think I think that encouraging others to do so might come from a little bit of experience being vulnerable. I feel like I don't know if I could put an exact like timeline on how long I feel like I have been trying to be more authentic and whatnot, but I think that since then I've been able to see my growth from me at least like 3 years ago versus me now, and I can pinpoint that growth and say exactly what changed, be able to express that to another person and say this happened because of this. It takes vulnerability, it takes accountability, and it takes like conscious work. And I guess not leading by like actions like in the now, but leading by example over time because I think my vulnerability has increased over time. And I think that, I don't know, I feel like I'm more me than I've ever been. And I'd rather people meet that person than anybody else.
Yeah, I feel like I 100% agree and I 100% notice the difference.
Thank you.
which is probably why you're here. Um, but yeah, I hope one person watching this understands that that's that's the tipping point. And in that, and if you can't find the courage to be authentic with yourself and outward bound, eventually you're going to be discovered.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like you're just, that the dirt you've shoveled over yourself eventually is going to erode away, and you're going to be found out anyway for what you are. So why not just get a head start on it and be it?
Yeah. And to add on to that too, I found that all of my friends are similar to me because with me being who I am, and not that's not to say that all my friends are soccer players or the same major as me or whatever, but all my friends are similar to me in that they're authentic. They have their quirks, they have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they have emotions. And I see all of those and they show those things. And so I think it's also important about it's important who you surround yourself with. And I think that being authentic kind of helps people gravitate towards you that are also authentic. So I don't know. I find that interesting that it kind of like being more authentically me automatically is like a magnet to other authentic people. And it's like a superpower. It's awesome.
Well, and I'm sure that friend group, that circle you have there is infinitely more enjoyable to hang out with than a bunch of bobbleheads.
Yeah. Yeah. Because everybody has their own thing. Like I could say something and I would I would know how my friend would respond, but all my friends would respond differently. And I know that they would give me great responses. And that's really important to me also to surround myself with people who would give me different responses. Like I know my mom might give me a different answer than my best friend, or my mentor might give me a different answer than my soccer coach. So I think it's important to have a close, good circle of people.
Well, and I love that because what you said there, because I talk about valuing different perspectives to make us a better whole person. And you just talked about getting different perspective feedbacks, um, which you could take in and internalize. You have, if you had five people, you have five different, what did you call them earlier? The truthful truth tellers?
Trusted truth tellers.
Trusted truth tellers. I mean, if you can surround yourself with those people and everyone's interacting in that environment, it's not much more to add to that.
Yeah. And I guess one more thing I'd add to that is with if you ask five different trusted truth tellers the same question, they might tell you different things. But if you're authentic with yourself and you're open, you'll be able to hopefully take those answers, take your own feelings and behavior and opinions and make the right choice.
Ella, thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate you and your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah.